What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we begin our second subclass talk of the Warlock series, and that is the Celestial Warlock. The Warlock that looks to possibly a more divine and maybe not so evil power. Maybe, it just depends. But either way, we get some cleric-y options and some healing stuff, but is that going to make the Warlock better? That is what we are going to find out today. But before we jump into it, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, also make sure to share the video with your friends, and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So yeah, the Celestial Warlock is actively one that fights for the light. Generally, right? You might be somebody that is on a crusade against undead, right? You might be doing something like that, but you're working for something that is from the upper planes, which is pretty cool, right? Which can give you somewhat of a life's meaning, but it also makes you a little bit more motivated, I think, as well. So there's definitely a lot of really cool story to be able to be told here, and there's a lot of flavor that comes with this subclass. But mechanically speaking, is it as good or better as some of the other subclasses? Let's find out. Starting off at level 1, just like every other subclass, we of course get an expanded spell list, and this one is kind of interesting. This one has basically like 50% is good and 50% is kind of meh, right? Like Guiding Bolt, I like. Cure Wounds is fine, although I don't think I'm going to be wanting to use my very limited resources in spell slots on something like that. Lesser Restoration is totally fine. I don't think Flaming Sphere is worth it. Revivify, that's definitely one I would consider for sure. Daylight, not so much. Wall of Fire, really cool. That's a great damaging spell. It's a great control spell. I like that. Guardian of Faith, not so much. It's fine. Greater Restoration, yes, absolutely. Definitely worth a spell slot, although it is costly in order to use it. And Flame Strike is just kind of whatever, right? So we're basically half and half on what I like and what I don't like. And that puts me in kind of a weird spot, because even looking through all of this, right, if you're willing to pay the cost, I might even drop Lesser Restoration when I get Greater Restoration, which leaves 4 of the 10 spells as what I would find to be useful. And so that makes this pretty easy to rank as a 4 out of 10 list. I don't think that the spells that are here are all that great. Yeah, Cure Wounds is going to be nice on most classes. For Warlock, it's not. Because my spell slots are so precious to me, I really can't afford to be using them on healing. I need them to be dealing either some kind of big support like Wall of Fire, I need to be bringing somebody back from the dead with Revivify, I need to be getting a lot of value out of my spell slots, and unfortunately things like Cure Wounds, Flaming Sphere, and Daylight just don't cut it. Also at level 1, we get some bonus cantrips, and so we get access to Light, and we also get Sacred Flame, which are pretty good. These, of course, just count as Warlock cantrips for us, and they do not count against our number known. That's really nice. We are limited in our number of cantrips that we get. We start off, of course, with 2 normally, and then we would go up to 4, so now this goes from 4 to 6, which is pretty cool. And yeah, it's great. Light is nice. It's a okay utility spell, especially for those that do not have dark vision, right? I'm looking more so at Sacred Flame, although it is just outgunned by Eldritch Blast, so you know, I'm not all that excited about it. Yes, it fits the theme, but it's just not as good as Eldritch Blast, which you're probably going to be taking anyway, unless you are really digging into the flavor of the subclass. For that reason, I don't see us using these all that much, to be honest, just because a lot of creatures do get dark vision. Yes, there are a few that don't, but a lot of them do, and so it may come up, it may not. I'm willing to give it a 5 out of 10. I think it's fine. I don't think that anything here is game changing. I don't think we're making the subclass busted by doing this. It's fine. And finally at level 1, yes, we get 3 things at level 1, which is pretty cool, seeing how the first 2 were kind of lackluster. Hopefully this one makes up for it. We get Healing Light, which is a very interesting feature, but it can kind of be simplified down to just a little bit. Basically, this is just kind of a better quote-unquote healing word, essentially is what it is. So we get a pool of d6s and we get a number of them equal to 1 plus our warlock level. So of course we start with 2 and eventually we would get 21 if we make it all the way to level 20. And as a bonus action, when we see a creature that is within 60 feet of us, we can actually use this up to a number equal to our charisma modifier, roll the dice, add them together, and restore that number of hit points. And then we get that whole pool back on a long rest. It's cool, right? I think that this is a lot better than us just getting Healing Word, because again, Healing Word is going to be a pretty rough use of our spell slots here. I don't think it would have been worth it. So having this pool, making this a little bit more flexible, I think is good. It being tied to our Warlock class is really nice, because then that's going to encourage us to stay in the Warlock class, which is good. So overall, I think this is nice. It's a really nice pick-me-up option. You can just burn one of them like what normally people would do with a Healing Word. And so you could do that 20 times, which is something that most casters cannot boast. That's really good, right? Again, I would, just like with Healing Word, I would only use this if someone is down and needs to be brought back up to be able to run around, deal some damage, maybe just hide, whatever it happens to be. I would use this when people are down, and this could allow you to really go nuts with it. But if you really want to top somebody off, you can, but honestly, healing is a lot worse when you play it that way. Overall, this is actually a really nice feature, and I think this is actually worth a 9 out of 10. I think this is actually really strong. Being able to pick people up this many times at no spell slot cost is kind of huge, and so the scaling is good, the amount of healing is good. Overall, I think this is a great feature. At level 6, we get Radiant Soul, and this gives us kind of a stronger connection to our Celestial Papa, or whoever it happens to be. So with this, we get a couple of things. We get resistance to radiant damage, and whenever we cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, we can add our charisma modifier to 1 radiant or fire damage roll of that spell against one of its targets. Okay, I'm gonna be honest about this feature. I think that this feature is one of the biggest traps of any feature, definitely of all of Warlock, maybe even of all of D&D. This feature is absolutely a trap, and I will tell you why. There are only about 10-ish spells, somewhere in that range, that we are going to get access to naturally as a Warlock that we can make use of this. That means that we are going to be going out of our way to take certain spells to get an extra 4 or 5 damage on one roll on one creature. That means that even if you went to Lore Bard and got a hold of Fireball somehow, doesn't matter, only one creature. That means that even if you got Scorching Ray and you fire 3 beams, only one of them is getting this benefit. The benefit is not good. It's not good, and it's going to force you to feel like you have to take spells of these damage types, of which there are very few, and that's going to completely derail you from spells that are going to do a lot better. On top of that, even with the damage boost, you on average are going to be dealing less damage with these spells, given what the Warlock already normally gets, than if you were to just go with Hex and Eldritch Blast. That is an issue, right? And of course, fire damage is worse than force damage. It is very commonly resisted. It's resisted all the time. Radiant, not as much, but I mean, even then, you know, if you're casting Guiding Bolt at, let's say, 3rd level, and you've already had your Eldritch Blast upgrade at this point, and you're at 2 beams on that, you're still better off doing Hex plus Eldritch Blast. You're going to always be better off. It is going to be spammable. You're not going to be stuck only using it by however many very, very few spell slots you actually have. It's bad. And resistance to radiant damage. There are only a handful of creatures that deal radiant damage. It's very, very rare. This whole feature is a trap. This whole feature is bad. It teaches you to go in the wrong direction and actively makes your Warlock worse. That's a problem, and for that reason it gets a 2 out of 10. I don't think I can quite give it a 1 because you do get a resistance to a damage type, which is fine, and you do get a little bit of extra damage, so I won't say it is completely useless, but it actively works against what the Warlock is, and for that reason, this feature is awful. At level 10, we get Celestial Resistance, and this looks an awful lot like a feat that a lot of people really like taking. So with this, whenever we finish a short or long rest, we can get some temporary hit points equal to our Warlock level plus our Charisma modifier. We can also include up to 5 friends in that if we want to, and they will also gain temporary hit points, although it is equal to half your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. This is essentially a reworked version of Inspiring Leader, right? Which is a good feat. I do like Inspiring Leader. I think it is absolutely a nice one to take. I've taken it on some paladins before. It definitely makes a lot of sense to have something like this, and it's just here as a feature. So I think it's fine. I think it's okay. I think the amount of temp HP isn't all that amazing, but it's free, right? You can use it as many times as you want after a rest. So that's pretty great, and there's no limit on how many times we can use it. It's great. So free temp HP, can't really complain too much about that, right? I can't be too mad about that. I think that deserves an 8 out of 10. I think this is pretty good. Yes, it's a little bit late at 10th level. Do I wish that this went back and was the feature at level 6? Absolutely, but either way, it is what it is. At level 14, we get Searing Vengeance, and this is kind of the ultimate get out of jail free card. Is it that good though? Let's find out. So with this, whenever we make a death saving throw at the beginning of our turn, we can choose to instead stand back up and release a burst of radiant energy. We regain hit points equal to half our maximum, and we can also stand up, which is pretty cool. Every creature of our choice that is within 30 feet of us then takes radiant damage equal to 2d8 plus our Charisma modifier and is blinded until the end of the current turn. Once we use this feature, we cannot do so again until we finish a long rest. This actually is not that bad. I think this feature gives us a lot of utility in getting out of a sticky situation, right? Let's say you are in a battle and you get surrounded by goons. There's nothing you can do to get out of there, right? You don't really have a lot of teleportation built in. Maybe you run out of spell slots and you don't have a Misty Step on deck and you get completely surrounded. You're getting nay-nayed, you go down, right? You then get back up when it would be your turn, blind everybody, and then go nuts, right? Which is pretty cool. So either you try to run away and get out of there, whatever it happens to be. It does not use your action, which is great. It does not use a bonus action, which is great. Completely free on that front. And so this can allow you to get out of a rough situation, and whether you need to heal or whether you need to go in and make everybody explode because now you have advantage because they're blinded, whatever you gotta do, go ahead and do it. The blinded condition does not require a saving throw, which is great, although it only lasts for the current turn, so the duration is pretty short, but maybe you can be able to make use of that if you've got some kind of an AoE spell that can deal some big damage with advantage, of course. This feature is not that bad, honestly. The damage is fine, but ultimately, overall, I think it's pretty good. I would give this an 8 out of 10 as well. I think this feature is pretty nice. I think it gives us a nice option to get out of sticky situations if we have gone down, and definitely could prevent a death if we are in the right spot in initiative. So what do we think of this subclass overall? I think you can tell that this one's a little all over the place. This one has some good and it has some really bad, right? There's nothing about this that screams any of these features are a 10. And even giving it a 9 is tough, right? It's just a really tough subclass, and I think that there was potential to make like a healing focused subclass, and you could have gone that direction with the Warlock, but overall we went more for fire and radiant damage, which kind of steps on the toes of the Fiend, which we haven't covered yet, but we will be very soon. And you know, it's the Fiend. They like fire damage and that kind of thing. So it's kind of tough in that it kind of steps on those toes a little bit. But yeah, overall, I feel like most of these features that we get are either really nice utility or throw it in the garbage. I never want to see it again. And that's not a good place to be, right? Because then you're going to gain certain features, especially Radiant Soul, where you may build your entire build around this. And I'm just going to tell you, you're going to be incredibly lackluster if you buy into what this subclass is trying to sell you. That is a problem. That is not what you want to do. With that in mind, we looked at the Archfey last week and gave it an 8. I still stand by that ranking. I think that people kind of underestimate what that should be. I think people think it's worse than it is. I think it's fine. This subclass is absolutely not better than that. However, in all of the junk, I think that there is some good going on here, right? I think Healing Light is actually incredibly compelling. Being able to pick people up equal to 1 plus your level, if you're going full Warlock, is incredibly useful. Being able to basically Healing Word like crazy is awesome. I've talked about the usefulness of Healing Word a ton on the channel and how being able to get somebody up from 0 however many times is amazing. It's amazing, right? It saves death saving throws. It saves you from having to worry about taking an extra hit if your DM is really trying to kill this character. It saves all of that from happening, and it's great. It's a bonus action. It's 60 feet. You get to use it a ton of times. I don't know what else you want. It's about as good as it gets on that front. Celestial Resistance is pretty good, right? We get a lot of temporary HP and we can give a bunch to our friends, right? We don't have to worry about taking Inspiring Leader. We basically have it on board, and it's one of the better feats that is out there. I'm okay with it. And finally, Searing Vengeance, if you even get that far. And that's kind of the tough thing, is that your features do get better once you get to the late levels, which you may or may not get to. So essentially, this is riding on how good is Healing Light, and can it hold up to everything else being rather mid, right? To me, I think it kind of can. Is it enough to get it to the Archfey level? No, but I think it's a little bit below it. So I'm gonna give this a reluctant 7 out of 10. You can argue with me in the comments down below. I can definitely see an argument for it being lower, but I think that it is not complete trash, but I think it is kind of tough in some ways. I think there might be some worse on this list, but this one's definitely tough. So we will be doing a build later this week, and hopefully through some multi-classing, we can find some ways to make this a little bit more usable. But until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.